Dottie Blythe, and this is my case study number one for INLS 585. And first, I'd like to give an overview of the situation at hand, and I'm doing so visually as I think it can help us make sense of the situation a little bit easier. So what we have here are two women of equal rank who disagree on their organization's policy on adverse weather. And colleague number one, we can call her Jane, prefers to be rewarded by being able to work on site during a snowstorm instead of having to use her personal time off for being asked to stay home when she could travel to the office. Whereas her colleague, and we can call her Diana, is frustrated that she must report to work since, as they call her, quote, essential personnel. And so, just to recap, Jane wants to be able to work if she can during a snowstorm, so she doesn't have to take any of her own personal time off. And she thinks that it's unfair that she has to do that for something that she can't control, for example, snow or weather. On the other hand, Diana wants to be able to choose if she can work or not. And what these two women might not realize is that they are more similar than they think. They both want more freedom within the organization regarding adverse weather days. Jane wants to work if she can, and Diana wants to not work if it's physically hard for her to get there. So there are also a lot of unknowns surrounding this scenario, which can potentially be seen as subjective. For example, who decides who is essential personnel? Is it HR? Is it managers? Is it management? We don't know that. Also, we don't know what the current status of the PTO policy is. So, for example, we don't know how many hours or days of PTO these employees have. Additionally, where is this company located? If it is in a place where it snows more often, does that change how they view the organization's weather policy? For example, if they live in Michigan versus Florida, does that change anything? And then lastly, what kind of company is this? So not only in regards to size, large or small, but if it's in the tech industry, can they work from home and can they work remotely? Or does it really require them to be on site? And so now that we've looked at the scenario, I'd like to talk about some of the potential hotspots that can arise when Jane and Diana are talking together. And one thing could be that they talk over each other and don't really listen to the other side. So, AKA, they both are too stubborn, really, to be listening. Also, it might be a touchy subject for one of them. We don't really know. For example, does someone does someone need more money or more personal time off than the other? For example, does Jane need her personal time off? Does she have to save it for something else? We don't really know that. And maybe that's something that these two women haven't really discussed together either. Another hotspot is that they might feel like the company doesn't or won't listen to them and that no change will be done, which can easily cause frustration. And then lastly, I can see a huge hotspot if one employee is required to be there and someone else of their similar rank is not. I think that can lead to a lot of internal conflict among not only Jane and Diana, but other employees too. And again, that's just really subjective, and we don't know who's making those decisions. And so if I were their manager, I would definitely talk with them one-on-one first, and I would try and get both of their perspectives. And if I thought it was helpful, then I would have them both discuss their concerns with each other, and perhaps maybe them talking about this out loud with each other. They might come up with a solution or proposal that they could draft up and send to HR, voicing both sides of their concerns for this issue. And to facilitate a productive conversation between them, I would also avoid inappropriate language, and I definitely wouldn't try and blame the other or try and take sides, because it's a difficult situation that obviously there's not going to be one perfect situation for every single employee, and I think that acknowledging that and showing that transparency will go a long way. And so now I have a potential dialogue between the two women, and I'm just going to read it out loud for you guys. So this is Jane talking, saying, "Hi Diana, I feel like we are really on the same page regarding the company's adverse weather policy, and I'd like to talk about why you were frustrated with it. I too am frustrated with it, and I would like to bring this up with our manager. I'd like to hear your thoughts." And in this, Jane is approaching Diana, and she's not attacking her or even trying to cause conflict. She just is really she's opening up to have an open discussion with Diana. And Diana is saying, Jane, thanks for coming up to me. I definitely do not think the policy is fair and would like to see it changed. I do not like having to be forced to go to work, and I think it's ridiculous that I have to drive in potentially dangerous conditions because they might want me on site. I agree. I also think no employee should have to risk their life just to be at the office, especially if there's a bad snow. But what are your thoughts on if you could potentially drive in it? I just don't think we should have to use our own personal time off for it. I just don't think that's fair. I hadn't really thought about it, Jane. Obviously, if someone can't make it or can make it to the office, then they shouldn't be penalized for it. And right now, what we have is just both sides or both parties are listening to each other and kind of understanding where the other one is coming from. And Jane goes, it seems like we actually agree. We should be able to decide for ourselves if we can make it to work or not. Would you want to come into my office and draft a proposal for HR with me? I think we can certainly voice both of our concerns with them. Sure, I'd love to, thanks. And so what we have here is a crisis averted. And some of the main takeaways from this dialogue that I'd like to highlight is that both women listened to each other and they both made room for compromise, and maybe their synergy together might bring a change in the organization, which is awesome. They also put each other in their shoes, and they didn't try and ignore the issue. They confronted it face on. Thanks.